since the beginning of this conference, we've been talking a lot about eco-cities and smart cities. And so today, I'm going to shift a little bit the subject and go to smart fields and smart crops. And so I'm going to show you how Fruition can develop a way to communicate with plants and basically link vineyard water use, so plant water use, to wine quality. And so really this is about the convergence of tradition and technology, and also the convergence of the old world and the new world. So what you have here is on the left, Bordeaux. So if we take a step back, Bordeaux has been growing vines and making wine for hundreds of years. And so they've used this time to really optimize winemaking and grape growing. And so we know that the climate in Bordeaux is very temperate, especially this year in 2013, where it's been raining all spring long. And so really they've been using their experience to adapt varietals with the type of soil they have and with the climate. And so, for example, they've been planting the vines very densely so that the vines can soak up as much of the water as possible from the ground. They've been growing grapes very close to the ground so that the grapes can be exposed to heat as much as possible during the summer. And so this really was the fruit of an evolution over 500 years at least. Now, if we talk about San Francisco and the Napa Valley that's very close by, you can see that the landscape is very different. We have here, it's really very dry hill, bare ground, very small trees. And so people had to first use the traditions and know-how coming from Bordeaux, but then they had to adapt. And one of the major tools they used to adapt was irrigation. And so with irrigation came a lot of questions like, when do you irrigate and how much do you irrigate? And so if we look at what people do right now, people mainly use indirect measurements like weather data and visual observations. And so they look at how the vines look, how the leaves curve, how the leaves can turn away from the sun, and how much the vines are growing. And so if we take a parallel, a very simple comparison, it's a little bit like looking at runners and looking at the weather and how the runners look to assess their health and diagnose if they are in a good health. So obviously this has nothing to do with measuring blood pressure or the heartbeat. It's just appearances. And so you can say that it gives you some information, but it's very short of telling you the whole story. And so what we think is that to measure vines and to really help with irrigation, you need to put sensors on. So this is going to be a little bit technical, but hang on with me. So the sensors we are using are looking like a sleeve. And so here what you see is the inside of the sleeve. It's a cork-based sensor. And in the middle, you see a heater strip. And so this strip is going to heat the sap flow. And on both sides of the strip, you can see thermocouples inside these red circles. And so basically what we know is that most of the sap flow in the vines, most of the flow of water is going on at the periphery of the vine. And so if we put these thermocouples in contact with the vine, we can really measure how fast the heat is moved by the fluid. And with that information, we can measure the flow, and so the amount of water that's leaving the plant on an hourly or daily basis. From there, so the sensor is put on the horizontal part of the vine. As you can see, it's protected with aluminum, so we call them space vines. And from there, it's related to a data logger, and the data logger is going to send the information on the internet, and then the data is displayed to our customers with a web application on any kind of web-enabled devices. And so with that technique, the grape growers and winemakers can look at the data on an hourly basis and really see the effect of a rain, an irrigation, a heat event, anything that happens to the vine. But so why is it important? Why do we need to measure irrigation? Is it really a problem if we over-irrigate? So with traditional crops, usually you have a pretty good relationship between how much water you give to the crop and the yield that you get and the revenues that you get from there. The problem is that for wine, it doesn't work this way because most of the quality components are in the skin. So aromas, color, concentration, all these components are in the skin. And so to maximize these components, you actually need to optimize the use of water. What's even more interesting is that a plant, a vine, can develop addicting behavior. And so if you keep giving to the plant a lot of water, it's going to keep making sugar and so get more alcohol in your wine. And so really there is a really big relationship between this water and the type of wine that you're going to make. And so really what we're saying is that this type of sensor is going to help you measure the terroir, where the terroir is the combination of climate, soil, practices, human practices, and the varietal. And so what we hope to show is that we can promote and show how unique terroirs are. And so, for example, we can show that the best terroirs have the best drinking habits in some ways. So we know that now that it's good for wine quality, this type of technique, but is it good for irrigation questions? Is it good for the environment? Here what you have is a 1 hectare plot, and we know that with our technique, on an average basis, the vineyard is going to use about 1 swimming pool per hectare. I'm not saying that we're going to put 1 swimming pool per hectare using irrigation. I'm saying that with rain, with water in the ground, all of it combined, the vineyard is going to use about 1 swimming pool per hectare. What we've seen when we started working with customers is that a lot of times people use 2 to 3 swimming pool per hectare because they are relying on visual cues, they are relying on models that tend to overestimate the need for water in the vineyard. And so really what we've been showing is that on an average basis, we can go from 50 to 100% savings in water from the first year on. So today, I mean, during this conference, we've talked a lot about energy, but why is water so important? So how much water is there on Earth? If you take the Earth and vaporize all the water and put it in a sphere, you're going to get the first blue sphere, which is about 1,400 kilometers in diameter. So this is the distance between Paris and Alger. But from there, if you take the water that's really readily accessible and that we can really use, the sphere shrinks to 60 kilometers in diameter. If you add to that the fact that obviously the population is growing, we say that we are growing from 7 billion to 9 billion in the next few years. Also with the fact that with climate change, less and less water is going to be available. Obviously, there is a huge need in understanding how we consume water. Even more important than that, what you have to understand is that 70% of the available fresh water is used in irrigation. And 20% of the whole energy used in the world is used also for irrigation. And so any type of percentage we can improve for this use of water is really going to affect our use of water and energy. So in conclusion, I want to go back to my first slide and to this conversion of tradition and technology. What I've shown is that with technology, for Bordeaux, we've been able to reveal terroirs. On the right, with technology, we've been able to optimize the use of water. what we imagine now is that as climate change and water becomes more and more of an issue, there's probably going to be a shift in the traditional farming model from a model where you can irrigate as much as possible to maximize your yield to finding an optimum between yield, quality, and water use. And we think that when that happens, we'll need plant-based sensors and plant-based techniques to optimize water use. Thank you for your time.